So in this video, I'm going to discuss the topic of this Chinese immigration scam into countries like Canada and the United States, and why these immigration scams are keeping Western youths in poverty. There's a reason why Western youths today, they have no chance. They have no chance of finding a decent job. They have no chance of owning a home, and they have no chance at a future. It is because these Western governments are allowing this to happen. So I'll use Canada as an example. Let's talk about the city of Toronto. In fact, let's include all the surrounding cities. Let's talk about the greater Toronto area. So you guys ever been to these Chinese restaurants in the GTA? And have you guys wondered how can the food be so cheap? Sometimes it blows my mind as well, especially I've been to many of these Chinese restaurants in Markham. And I look at the price of these items. And I'm thinking that the local Canadian mama and papa shops, they have no chance to compete against these Chinese restaurants. Well, number one thing you guys might have noticed, a lot of these Chinese restaurants in the greater Toronto area, they take cash only. Well, first of all, if they only take cash, that wipes away the 2% fee from various credit cards. And that is massive, right? 2% might not sound like much. But over the course of the entire year, if you have a total transaction of $300,000, then that 2% becomes very significant. Also, if these Chinese restaurants, if they only accept cash, then the government has no idea how much money they have made. They can report as little earnings as possible, and they can completely get away with it. This is 100% tax evasion. But unfortunately, our government continues to let things like this happen. And one more thing, if you're wondering why the food is so cheap at these greater Toronto area Chinese restaurants and the Chinese grocery stores, what if I told you guys that these Chinese businesses, they use free Chinese labor? Yes, you heard that 100% correctly. There are many Chinese immigrants who are working at these restaurants, who are working at these grocery stores, who are working at these Chinese shops for 100% free. No wage paid at all whatsoever. Many of these Chinese people are working 72 to 84 hours a week. How is this possible? Well, let me explain to you guys. So by the way, these Chinese people who are working for free, they're doing it on their free will. They're not being enslaved by these greedy Chinese restaurant owners and the shop owners. So the catch is that they're made a promise from these Chinese shop owners. They say that, okay, come to my store. I will make you work 72 or 84 hours a week. I won't pay you, but instead, I will give you free food. Since you're already working at a Chinese restaurant, let's all eat together, and I will provide a shelter for you. Perhaps you can come in and stay in my basement, or there's an extra guest bedroom or storage room where you can crash on the couch. So you work for me for free, and in exchange, I will give you food and I will provide you with shelter. More importantly, I will give you a pathway to citizenship. So a lot of these Chinese people who are willing to do this for free, typically this process lasts for 2 years. And once you have been in Canada for more than 2 years, usually what happens is that they will end up applying for asylum and they will become a refugee. So for many of these Chinese people who are willing to work for free, this is actually a 2-year path to permanent residency. They're taking a backdoor approach because they don't want to actually go through the normal process. Because in China, if you actually want to apply to immigrate from China into countries like Canada or the United States or Australia or New Zealand, it's actually a minimum 4-year process. China actually goes through a very extensive screening process, and a lot of people, unfortunately, either they can't meet the requirements or they just want to take a shortcut. They want to cut the line. So they find these sketchy Chinese businesses, they work for free, then after 2 years they apply for asylum, they become a refugee, and they get their permanent residence. I bet a lot of you guys haven't heard of that. If you guys thinking I'm making this up, well, I can personally tell you some stores in Ottawa that does this. Have you guys heard of the Green Fresh? So this is a Chinese grocery store located right in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Yes, Green Fresh, I would say probably at least anywhere between 30% to 50% of their staff, they're illegal immigrants who are seeking to apply for asylum, who are seeking to get their permanent residence after working for free at the store for 2 years. And there's another restaurant called the Mongolian Hot Pot. I'm not sure if they're still open. They might have gone bankrupt. Yes, they were not paying their servers or cooks or dishwashers at all. Most of the people working there, they do not have a social security number. They're working there for free, typically for 2 years. Is a pathway to permanent residency and ultimately a Canadian citizenship. Hey, don't blame the players. Blame the game. This is how corrupt your Canadian government is. They know exactly what's happening, but they're allowing all of this to happen right under their nose. They don't give a shit. There are severe consequences for this, like what I have mentioned. If a Chinese restaurant is allowed to do this, if they're using these illegal immigrants who are seeking a pathway to permanent residency, and they have a steady flow of these illegal immigrants to work at their restaurants for free, that means that their labor cost is going to be zero. So let's say if you go to a restaurant in the Greater Toronto area, and if you order some Chinese food, a lunch at a local Chinese restaurant could cost you, let's say, $30. But if you want some local Canadian food, and obviously the Canadian restaurant owners, they have to pay their waiters, they have to pay for their cooks, they have to pay for their chefs, they have to pay for their dishwashers. So all of these people who are employed, they have to pay them a living wage. At the very least, they have to pay them a minimum wage in Ontario, which is currently $16.55 an hour. Here's the issue. If you're paying out salaries to all of these people, that means that a lunch at the local Canadian mom and papa restaurant is going to cost you at least $40 or even $45 or $50. So who's gonna go to the Canadian restaurant and pay $45 or $50 when you can go to the Chinese restaurant and pay $30? This is why radical and illegal immigration is completely destroying the Western society. And this is just the start, trust me. Here's another issue, okay? This has also happened under Justin Trudeau. Let me bring back this graph. So Canada's population in 2023, as you can see, exploded, increased by 1.3 million. So 450,000 of the increase is coming from legal immigrants, okay? And additionally, another 579,000, that comes from international students, and the vast majority of them are from India. But if you add these two numbers together, that is still just over 1 million people. The numbers are not adding up. How did Canada get 1.3 million people last year? Here's the final piece of the puzzle. Get ready for this. This is called the Temporary Foreign Workers Program. In fact, up until Justin Trudeau took office, this was never ever a thing. Yes, Canada has always had this program, but the official law according to the federal government is that businesses, they cannot employ people using the temporary foreign workers program unless they absolutely cannot find anybody in Canada to work in these fields. This is when this act can be invoked. So up until Justin Trudeau took office, this program was basically non-existent. But here's what happened. In 2022, 120,000 people came to Canada using the temporary foreign workers program, and the approval rate was 70%. So 120,000, that was a new record. Before 2022, Canada would typically take in anywhere between 10 to 20 to 30,000 workers per year. So 120,000 in 2022. Guess how many people came to Canada in 2023 using the temporary foreign workers program? This number doubled from 120,000 to 240,000. Doubled in 1 year. And the application approval rate went from 70% to 97%. So how did I know about this program? Well, actually, the Chinese grocery store I'm currently working at, I know 4 people. All of them came from Hong Kong, literally within the past year. All 4 of these Chinese people, they came to Canada using the temporary foreign workers program. And guess what? All of them have already got their permanent residency after 1 year of landing in Canada. So all you have to do after you get your temporary workers permit, once they allow you to work in Canada, once you get your social security number, you can find any job you want to. All you have to do, same as the Indian international students, is to work 1,560 hours. Once you logged in 1,560 hours, and it's pretty easy to do so if you work full-time. This can take as little as 6 or 7 months. You go to the Department of Immigration, you pay them $1,050, you have your permanent residency card. This is a 1-year path to permanent residency. So a lot of people are catching up. A lot of people from China and India, they're realizing, wow, this is actually the fastest way to immigration. This is the fastest way to green card. This is why so many people from places like Hong Kong, China are basically using this as a backdoor shortcut in order to get their permanent residency in Canada. I've literally just the past year, I witnessed 4 Chinese people from Hong Kong getting their permanent residency using this temporary foreign workers program. And guess what? Justin Trudeau literally in 2023, he stated last year, he said that he is going to open the floodgate. Remember, when Justin Trudeau took office, Canada was allowing 10 to 20 to 30,000 people a year using the temporary foreign workers program. But in 2022, Canada allowed 120,000. 2023 was 240,000. And Justin Trudeau said that he wants to take this number and double it. He wants to let in 500,000 temporary foreign workers per year using this temporary foreign workers program. Yes, and all of these people, after they arrive in Canada using the temporary foreign workers permit, they can simply work for 1,560 hours, and they go to the Department of Immigration, they pay $1,050, they get their green card. This is why you have the 1.3 million people increase from last year. And remember, it's only going to get worse. Year after year after year. Soon you will see 1.5 million, 2 million, 2.5, 3 million people flooding into Canada every single year. And why isn't the government stopping this? Well, this is all part of the plan. Literally, Justin Trudeau said this back in 2022. He wants to open up the floodgate for immigration. That's his goal from day one. And you wonder why things are so difficult for today's youths, right? Back in the day, the boomers and the Gen X, they didn't have to compete with this level of immigration. They did not have to compete with these low-wage workers from developing and third world countries. The issue with millions of these people pouring in through either legal or illegal immigration, or through Canada's international students program, or through this new temporary foreign workers program, which has absolutely exploded in just the last couple of years. Here's the issue, right? Let's say if you live in Canada, let's say you graduated from University of Ottawa, let's say you're looking to become a business consultant, and when you attend an interview from a potential employer, they ask you, what do you think is a good starting wage? Well, you say a decent starting wage in Ottawa is probably anywhere between 50,000 to 55,000 Canadian a year. The employer is going to think that, okay, I'll think about that. Why would I pay someone who just graduated from University of Ottawa in Canada $50,000 or $55,000 a year? Well, I can just find one of these Indian international students, because guess what? They're going to work for $45,000 a year to start. This is why so many big brand employers are so desperate for these immigrants to come Canada, because you can pay people from our third world countries at a much lower wage. And this means that the youths who are born in Canada, their future has been completely destroyed. They have no chance at surviving in our society. So I'll give you guys another great example. Let's say I lived in the city of Toronto. Let's say I owned a Chinese restaurant, and I'm looking to hire people. I put a sign up, says help wanted, pay $16.55 an hour at minimum wage. Obviously, in Toronto, you cannot really survive on minimum wage. Nobody's gonna apply. But if I change the sign, if I said help wanted, pay $25 an hour, guess what? Literally within the first couple hours, I'll probably have 30 or 40 applicants. But then I'm going to sit down and think, why would I pay somebody who is from Canada $25 an hour when I can simply get one of these fresh off the boat immigrants, and I can just simply pay them a minimum wage and I can save myself a lot of money? Or actually, why would I even pay somebody $16.55 an hour when I can just find a couple of illegal Chinese immigrants, and I'll promise them a 2-year path to asylum and to permanent residency, and they can work at my Chinese restaurant for 100% free. You guys see what I'm talking about, right? These kind of programs, the fake international students program, these are fake asylum application claims, these are fake temporary foreign worker permits. All this does is that it's only going to encourage these employers in Canada to pay their staff as little as possible. This is why the wages cannot keep up with inflation, because Canada keeps bringing in millions and millions of people a year. This is a system that has completely destroyed this country. This is why youths today are under tremendous amount of stress. This is why youths today cannot afford to buy a home. This is why so many people are looking to leave Canada. And if you guys don't believe me, look at the youth unemployment rate in the city of Toronto. In 2022, roughly 9% of the youths between the ages of 15 and 24 was unemployed in the city of Toronto, Canada's most populous city that is roughly 60,000 people. Guess what that number is at now, just 2 years later in 2024? It jumped from 60,000 to 120,000. It's just like what I have mentioned. Many of these Canadian businesses, they're deciding that it is not worth it to pay the local Canadians a much higher wage, to pay them a living wage, when they can simply get a legal immigrant to work for free, or they can get one of these fresh off the boat immigrants from a third world country and pay them a minimum wage. This is why I believe the immigration system in Canada has completely failed, and at least for the next 5 years, Canada should not be taking in any immigrants or refugees or any international students or any temporary foreign workers at all, because it is going to completely destroy this country. And yes, I mentioned in previous videos, for Canada's next election, I will be voting for Mr. Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party of Canada. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be too little, too late. Justin Trudeau has done way too much damage to this country, and I don't think any party in Canada or any candidate has a solution to fix this problem. If you can afford to, I think it's time to leave Canada because things are only going to get worse.